increasingly people are becoming aware of that. Adoption is really more than just a binary decision, and even an only cost-driven decision of whether or not to invest in a certain solution, or in a DOT in this case. Actually, adoption is a process. It's a process of becoming familiar in first instance with the DOT, and going through multiple phases of consideration, whether it fits with your farming operations, or it fits even with your orientation towards technology. And then you get, if you do indeed decide to invest in a DOT or trial it, then you go into this whole phase of actually employing it in daily practice, and many things can happen in that sense. It can maybe underperform or not really fit with the habits that you're used to. And also that's really important to study for us, not only to understand how DOTs might be skilled, but also how the performance of DOTs on the farm might actually be optimized over a longer time scale. So that's why it's important to understand those behavioral dynamics. I must say that they have all fascinated me in different ways. Well, first of all, we've been welcomed so openly and generously by the 9 test cases we visited so far. So we've been to 9 farms all over Europe with different profiles, of course geographically, because they've been placed throughout Europe, but also we visited an oyster farm, a corn farm, a dairy farmer, and I think there's a lot you can say about their differences. I think it's also interesting to mention what unites them, because we really have seen that a picture is painted across Europe, even though they're so different, of a sector really under pressure from climate change, from regulatory changes, and also as a profession. The future prospects are really more insecure than they used to be decades ago, and that's something that really unites these farmers that we've spoken to, and all in their own way they're now looking into how DOTs can actually support them to deal with these pressures. And then what you see is that what determines their decisions can differ. One, for instance, is very risk averse, and from that perspective says, I need DOTs to decrease my risk. Well, another one is also risk averse, but then says, well, I'm not sure about investing in DOTs because it might take away a bit of my autonomy. So there you see how these pressures are unifying, but what this means for DOT adoption is different. Well, logically, following from what I just said, they are very different, but I think on a general level you could say the future prospect that I just mentioned, if there's no real outlook for succession at the moment, the farming population in Europe is significantly aging. That can be a barrier to really invest in something new. Also, what we hear is that the investment time spans of investing in a DOT, which may cost, for instance, a new camera system, which may cost 15,000 euros. The investment time span does not really match with the regulatory time spans. So it makes for an insecure situation of how worthy is it, given my return on the investment. So that's another barrier. But also, I must say we have a list of about 40. So just mentioning a few, also on a very personal level. What is the skills level and the affinity someone feels with technology. And maybe the last one I will mention now increasingly, as we are looking into digital tools, is what about the protection of the data that is being collected on the farm, and ownership rights of the data, and your autonomy as a farmer on about the data that is being collected on your farm. I think those are, if that is not transparent enough, that's a significant barrier. I wish I could say there is no difference, because it's a really bit of a very simple explanation of things, right? Age, you know. However, yes, there is a difference. We see older farmers more reluctant to venture into new digital applications. Whether that is just age, not completely sure. I think it has to do also with especially it is related to the future prospect, as I mentioned. If there is an older farmer but with children engaged on the farm and willing to take it over at some point, you see also older farmers venturing more easily into adopting DOTS. But in general, I think I can confirm indeed that the farmers we speak to also in the project are all over relatively young. Yes. Well, that's an interesting question. I think the economic incentive is, of course, major. And this is very much related to other factors as well. For instance, if they want to maintain a certain market position for their produce, they have to adhere to certain regulations which are increasingly stringent on sustainability, for which they would need a DOT to supply the right data. And by securing their market position, they're securing their economic position. So that is very much connected. So yes, that is just an extremely important driver, the economic driver. What you also see with the adopters of DOTS is that it helps them to maintain an image as well. We have spoken to farmers that say, by employing the DOTS, my biodiversity on the farm has actually increased. We're counting more bees because the way we spray becomes far more targeted. And this is also a marketing story, even a way to position yourself as a sustainable farmer. So that's also, I think, an important motivator there, besides the economic one.